Hey everybody, Timymac here, and on this episode I'm going to show you how I made these cutting boards for family and friends for the holidays. The missus and I went to the hardwood store, and of course she wanted to pick out what she liked. So she suggested that I get a 8/4 piece of solid maple. It was 6.5 by 58 inches long, some butternut that she really liked, and a piece of purple heart and some red oak. So needless to say, after a lot of milling, I finally got ready to assemble these things. So follow along and see how I did. Okay, I started the milling process. I pulled out my benchtop jointer and started with the large piece of maple. This thing was a bear to mill down, as you'll see. I got this edge straight and flat, and then I moved over to the table saw. I don't have a bandsaw, so I couldn't resaw this thing in half. And for some reason or other, this is a relatively new saw, but it's 1 3/4 horsepower, but it won't mill this. I ended up having to cut this piece of wood from the bottom, little by little. It actually took me about 4 hours to mill that one piece of maple down. Here I'm using the butternut. You can see it's not really flat. That leading edge right in front of that knot is kind of bowed. But I got it all done. Here's a piece of maple. No, that's the same piece of butternut going back for like the second or third pass over the jointer. Then I pulled out the planer. This is a boss of a machine. I tell you what, it was a gift from my family. I wanted a planer. I was going to save up my money and buy one of those suitcase styles, but they surprised me with not only this painter. Oh, there goes the outfeed table roller. They surprised me with this planer and the stand that comes with it, and an extra set of blades. But I ended up milling down all the wood to almost its final thickness. I need to put an elbow on that outfeed sack. It gets in the way. Then I was going to rip them down to width. I started by setting up what I thought was a good width for some of the boards. But I ended up, you'll see here, this became, look, this final, that's a precise measurement right there. Then I looked down, where's the lumber? Where's the wood? Oh, there it is. So I started to rip these boards down. Started with the butternut, and it was taking so long. So I pulled out my cut-off sled. I cut these things down to rough dimensions, which were about 17 inches in length. The overall boards, rough dimensions of the boards were 17 by 12, and then once I was satisfied with that, I just started ripping everything down to widths. Some of them are set, some of them are random. Here I'm using my little cut-off sled to chop these things down. I could have pulled out the chop saw and set it up. It probably wouldn't put a stop on it. It probably wouldn't have been a lot easier. But I did this. And then once I had them all done, I started like rearranging. Each one is different. I never made, no two are alike. They might look real similar, but they're not two alike. There's a nice piece of purple heart. And this started with a piece of maple, 2 pieces of
butternut, another piece of butternut, or was it 2 pieces of butternut? Ended up with a piece of that. There's no oak in this one for some reason. Just check the measure. And then moved on to glue up. I made a total of 10 of these boards. And it took, I'd glue one up and then I'd get it clamped, and you know, you never have enough clamps. And it would, I'd glue it up and then I'd let it sit for an hour and then pull the clamps off and move to the next one. But all in all, it worked. And picked up the popsicle stick. Then I started clamping them up. Now this is probably not the first one. This might be number 3 or 4 because I forgot to turn the camera on, which I do a lot of. I've got some wax paper there on top of the saw so I don't have any glue drip down on it. There's one clamped up. This was an issue. This one clamped up, but it had a bow in it. And I ended up resawing one part of it. There's the dog running around in the background. And I cut the other side to take the glue off. And picked it up. See how it looked? Look, need to flip it over. There you go. When I glued this one up again, I put some cawls on it to hold it flat. It worked fine. What I completely forgot to turn the camera on was when I ran all these back through the planer again. So I don't have that, but everybody knows what that looks like. And I couldn't find my spritzer bottle, so I ended up using a sponge and a bowl of water to wet these things down and raise the grain up. I also forgot to turn the camera on when I ran the router around all the edges. But I wet these things down twice. And then came final sanding. Pulled out the orbital, ran him over. And then there, tack rag, wiped them all down, and pulled out some mineral oil and started just throwing some mineral oil on there, food grade, and wiping these things down. I ended up putting about 3 coats on each one, and was pretty satisfied with it. I might make some more. Maybe charcuterie boards for this coming holiday season. We'll see. But anyway, that was it.